Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the weekly Parsha Shir. And believe it or not, we're starting Sefer Bamidbar this evening. We went through the entire Sefer Vayikra in our homes. No shul, no minyanim, no laning, no haftarah, nothing. And now we're embarking on Sefer Bamidbar this week. And we hope, Be'ez Hashem, that we'll find ourselves back in our shuls, at least in a minyan in a backyard or a front yard. B'mheira v'yameinu Be'ez Hashem. So I want to speak about a topic tonight, which is something that is a little bit distant from our thoughts these days, because the entire last 2 months of our lives have completely uprooted this notion and this idea that we're going to speak about. If you look inside the Chumash in this week's Parsha, we find that it speaks a lot about the Digolin, the flags that the tribes would have for their nation, for their particular tribe. And the prince of that tribe would hold, he would raise the banner, he would raise the flag. And that would be a sign that everybody should come and gather around the flag of their tribe, and it would accompany them, or they would accompany the flag itself in the midbar, in the wilderness. And the pasuk says, Ish al diglai ba'oisais leveisa avaisam. Every man in his camp will go to the flag which belongs to their base avaisam, to the house of their father. Yachenu b'nei Yisrael mineged saviv, and the children of Israel, they will encamp mineged saviv, a little bit of a distance, but around la'oyel mayed yachenu, they will surround the oyel mayed, the tent of meeting. So the Jewish people are traveling through the midbar, traveling through the wilderness. They have their families, they have their husbands, their wives, their children, aunts, uncles, bubbies, zadis, everybody is there. And in order to know exactly where they're supposed to stand while they're traveling through in the journeys that would eventually take 40 years to master, there's a flag which is the symbol of that particular tribe, with signs and with colors and everything that will let them know this is where you belong. And they will stand there by that flag, by that sign, and they will travel going along with the Oyel Moed, with the tent of meeting, where Moshe Rabbeinu would go and speak to Hashem, where the Shekhinah, where the divine presence would make itself known in this world, and they would be around, gathering around that Oyel Moed, that tent of meeting, as they traveled in the midbar. Rabbi Dovid Horowitz writes in this parsha, at this particular point, that it's very unusual. I'm only reading you one verse, but there's numerous verses that speak about the flags, exactly what the flag looked like, where they would stand, which tribe would stand on the west, which one would be in the east, which would be in the north, which would be in the south. Rabbi Yerucham is bothered by it's a little bit unusual that the Torah would spend so much time talking about the 12 flags that represent the tribes. Just tell us, they went into the midbar, they had a place to stand, and they stood there. Why do we have to know so many details, so many psukim, so many ideas, and so much minutia behind this parsha, behind this part of the parsha that we're reading? And he says over the following idea. The Torah goes to great lengths to describe to us this idea of the flags. Why? And it gives us many warnings of exactly how much you have to take these things seriously to make sure that you don't go beyond the boundaries, you don't stand in the wrong place, you follow in line the way that you're supposed to. The Jewish people for 40 years, while they wandered in the wilderness, they were very particular, very careful to make sure that they lived up to the expectations in how they would go walking through the wilderness with these flags leading the way. Kashanira came in the Shalumis, as he brings down from other places, that we see that this is true. Now, what's the reason, says Rav Yerucham, that the Torah is so particular over here about this? And he explains over the following. And he says the reason is because the Torah is teaching us that one of the most important ingredients that a person is going to have in their world of Avodas Hashem, how they're going to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how they're going to keep his mitzvahs in the right way, how they will work on themselves, how they will live from the morning until the night and everything in between. One of the most important aspects in the life of a Jew is something that we call Seder. There is order, there is rhyme, and there is reason, and there is exact order in which a person will conduct his life every single step that he takes. And Rabbi Yerucham writes that the more Seder, the more order that there is in a person's life, the more successful they are going to be in acquiring and achieving their goals. The more chaos and the more disarray and the more confusion that is going on in a person's life, the more shoes that are left in the middle of the floor, the more trash that wasn't taken out, the more appointments that we miss, so the less of a chance of success physically and spiritually and emotionally a person is going to have in this world. And he himself, Rabbi Yerucham, was a Talmud, he was a student from the yeshiva of Kelm. And the Kelm yeshiva had as its Rosh Yeshiva the altar, Rav Simcha Zissel, who was the Rosh Yeshiva, the head of the yeshiva in Kelm. And one of the midas, one of the traits that he imparted to his students, and he drove it home again and again and again, was you must have Seder, you must have order in your life. And if you don't, then your life is not going to be heading down the right direction, and you're going to have a very hard time accomplishing the goals that you would like to. The altar himself, Rav Simcha Zissel, once went to visit his son, who was learning in another yeshiva in another town. And he went to the yeshiva, and instead of coming to the Beis Midrash, the house of study, to see his son, how he was learning, instead of going and speaking to his Rosh Yeshiva to ask him, no, how is my son doing over here? He walked into his bedroom, the room that he slept in. And he walked over to the bed where his son slept, and he saw that the bed was made nice and orderly. He saw that he had a pair of shoes tucked neatly under the bed. All of his clothes, whatever he had, were all placed in good order. And the author said, if my son's room is in order, then everything is okay. And he turned around and he left and he went home. Because when there is Seder, when there is order in a person's life, everything begins to fall into place. I knew a fellow once, I believe he was a law student in Stanford. He was a brilliant, brilliant fellow, and he was a straight A student. So somebody asked him once, how do you do it? Straight A's, you must study a lot. He said, I study. He said, but you know what? Every night before a big exam, I put my room in order. I put all my stuff away. I clean off the desk. I make sure the kitchen, the place is clean. And once that my room is in order, my brain is in order, and all of the information falls in just exactly the way that it should. Says Rabbi Yerucham, what he learned from Kelm and from the altar of Kelm was that if you have Seder in your life, and you are a person that is striving for that, so then you will be able to live a life that is orderly, that is directed, that is thought out, that is straight, the path that you want to achieve. And says Rabbi Yerucham, that's why we find in this week's Parsha so many psukim, so many verses about this flag and that flag, this tribe over here, that tribe over there, all the rules, all the regulations that the Jewish people must follow. And then it says, of course, and they did, they listened to everything that they were being told. Why? Because unless a Jew knows where he's supposed to walk in this world, unless he knows where he belongs, unless he identifies, that's my mishpacha, that's my family, that's my tribe over there, I got to be walking on that side. So then that person's going to keep just traveling to this side of the road and that side of the road. He'll be jumping over here, he'll be jumping over there. He's not going to have the order that he needs in his life to be able to do that which is correct, which will lead him and carry him to the goals that he is searching for. The Rabbi Yerucham says over from the altar of Kelm, he said a beautiful mashal, a very beautiful parable about just how intrinsic order is in our lives. And he said, it is like a knot at the end of the string or the end of the necklace that is holding on to all of the pearls. Imagine you have a beautiful pearl necklace, beautiful, and it's on a nice ivory string. And the pearls are glittering, they're shining. And everybody who sees that necklace, wow, never saw pearls like that before. What's the most important part of that necklace, says the altar? Even though everybody will admit to you, the main part of the necklace are the pearls themselves. And the knot that is at the end of the necklace, which is holding it all together, of course, is secondary compared to the pearls. Nevertheless, if you will undo the knot that is holding the necklace together, which has all of these expensive pearls on them, all of the pearls will fall to the ground. The pearls are worth thousands of dollars. The string itself is worth maybe $10. The knot doesn't cost you a penny, just a few seconds of your time. But if that knot is not in place and holding the pearls together, if you untie it, so then the pearls are going to slide off and you'll lose them all. You won't be able to find them and to get them. And even if you do, they are not in the way in which you wanted them to be. Kenu Inyan Shel Seder, says the altar of Kelm, that is exactly what orderliness in one's life is all about. Seder HaShomer Kol Toiv Sheba'olam, the orderly life that a person will lead. It will guard and protect all of the goodness that is in the world and in his world. Even though it's something that is really secondary to the actions and the events and the situations that he finds himself involved in. And he explains, if a person is orderly, they're neat, they're kempt, they're put together, they're always aware of the time. Rav Scheinberg Zatzal used to say that he never wanted a pocket watch. He says, you don't put time in your pocket. You keep time right here on your wrist. You have to know what time it is all the time. Why? Because then you will take advantage of the minutes and the hours and the weeks and the months and the years of a person's life. But if you don't know what time it is, if you're not aware that time is ticking away and you only have so much time left to be able to do what you need to do, then the time will be frittered, it'll be wasted away. Says the altar of Kelm, Ima Adam hu Mesuder, if a person is orderly and they are put together in so many areas of their life, then as HaTorah, they're learning, ve'atfila, and they're davening, ve'kol mitzvah shaloi, all of their mitzvahs, shemurim heim, they will be guarded and protected, ubetuchim b'kiyumam, you can trust and guarantee that you will fulfill them, v'im loi, but if not, if you don't have order, if you are a chaotic person by nature, you are a confused person, a schlumpy person, you are unkept by nature, says the altar of Kelm. What will happen at that point? Then kol harmagolios, all of these pearls, mitzvahs are pearls. They are infinitely more valuable than pearls, but they will all yiplo arza, they will all fall down to the ground. How are you going to daven if you can't wake up in the morning? How are you going to learn if you never make it to the shiur, you never make it to the class on time? How will you do chesed? How will you do an act of kindness if you're always too busy doing something else? You know, all of the psychologists in our new generation of technology have run many scientific studies about the ill effects that technology computers, Google search, all these things are doing on our brains. And they found the following very fascinating statistic. You would think that it would be very easy for a person to write a term paper in our generation. They have a topic, they punch it into Google over there. Google will bring you a list of all the sources, all the ideas and information that you need, and you go and you learn. Be great. So you should get onto the computer, Google yourself your topic, spend a couple of hours going through all the sources, and voila, cut and paste, put it over here, you got yourself a term paper. But you know what they found out? They found out that we are such a disorderly generation that you get onto your Google and you punch in your word, whatever your term paper is about. You want to write a term paper about coronavirus, and suddenly on the side over there, in the sidebar, it starts talking about Spanish flu. So while you're writing a term paper about coronavirus, you start searching over there about the Spanish flu. And then that takes you to something else called the bubonic plague. And then it takes you to something else. You end up talking about the plagues that took place to the Egyptians in Egypt. What's going on over here? And by the time that 3 hours is over, you have about one line in your term paper. That's called disarray. That's called lack of order. Orderliness is, I have a paper to write. I have a topic that I need to explain and expound upon. Let me go through the material that is necessary. And if I don't have that order, if I don't have, we'll call it that focus to be able to accomplish the margolios, the pearls of my life, my mitzvahs, my Torah, my chesed, my shmiras einayim, my yiras Hashem, all of that, it falls to the ground, and a person won't have anything. But he continues. A person should wake up at the same time every single day. They should pray at a minyan the same time every single day. Okay, there's extenuating circumstances, like you're very tired and you slept in, you had a baby, someone's not feeling well, coronavirus, whatever's going on, we understand. But in general, says the altar, be on time. Have an order to your life. When it comes time for a class, you're always there on time. There are always people that are 5 minutes fashionably late. It's not fashionable, says the altar of Kelm, to be late. You're missing out on the order of life. And even when it's time to stop learning, when the class is over, you close the book, and that's it, it's done, and you'll pick it up the next time you're supposed to sit down and start learning. Says the altar of Kelm, if you will be a person of great order, and you will take things seriously, and you will be focused, and you'll get yourself into a rhythm. I learned in Eretz Israel in the mashkiach, not when I was there, but the first mashkiach of the yeshiva, Rabbi Dovid Horowitz, Zatzal. He was a Baal Mussar. He was very steeped in the world of Mussar, of ethics, and of spiritual perfection, working on himself. They said that you could set your clock according to him. He was on the street in the same place every single day, exactly the same time. He walked into the Beis HaMidrash, into the yeshiva, same time every single day. When it was time to learn, he was there. When it was time to daven, he was there. When it was time to be at home, he was there. He once found out that there were numerous boys that were not coming on time for shacharis, coming on time to pray. And if you come late at a certain point, you don't make it at all. And if you don't make it at all, very often you'll miss the last halachic time to say the Shema in the morning, which in the words of Chazal, of our sages, is really, in the world of spiritual crimes, it's not something you want to be guilty of. And Rabbi Dovid Horowitz was very upset that so many boys in yeshiva were doing this. So there's a very famous speech that he gave. And in this speech, it ended up being recorded, so it was for all posterity's sake, everybody heard it. He got up and he told the boys, in my life since I was Eila al Daita, that I was old enough to understand what I was doing, I want you to know that I never missed the earliest time for a person to say the Shema in the morning. And then he said over the following words, Shemayim va'aretz, heavens and earth, will be my witness that what I'm telling you is the truth. At that moment, it was not a rainy day in Baltimore. It wasn't, clouds were not over the skies. Suddenly, at that moment, as he was speaking, clouds rolled in and the thunder and the lightning rang out in the sky as he said that heaven and earth will be my witness. And if a person is a person of order, a person is focused, a person has their lists of the things that they want to accomplish in the day, and they knock them off one by one. And if you don't knock it off, you'll put it to the next day, and you'll try better the next day to do more. If a person is order, they will succeed. Order is the knot on the necklace that is holding on to all of your success in mitzvahs. You did a mitzvah, but it could fall off. You learned Torah, but it could fall away from you. You davened, but you came in late, and you're rushing. Now we're living, these words might be very hard for us, because one thing that the coronavirus has been very successful at doing for us is destroying the order in our lives. We all had, to an extent, an orderly life that we were leading. Wake up in the morning, go to the minyan. From the minyan, we go to work. We work 6 hours a day, 7 hours a day, 8 hours a day. We come home, it's dinner, it's homework, it's time with the wife. Whatever our order was, it was pretty much, to a certain extent, we were conditioned in that way. Comes along quarantine, and everything just dissolves in front of our eyes. You wake up when you want to wake up. You daven, maybe in your living room, maybe in your dining room, maybe in your kitchen, maybe in your office. You learn if you get around to it. You do chesed if you can find an opportunity. You eat when you're hungry. It happens to be we're hungry 24 hours a day. We just learned the last 2 months. We are losing the order. We're losing the seder of our lives. When a person is out of whack like that, it's very hard to succeed, because whatever you accomplish, it's just going to fall off the chain of that necklace that there is. And therefore, Klal Yisrael, when they were in the Midbar and they are walking through the wilderness, and they have a long journey ahead of them. This is 40 years that they're going to be wandering. They better make sure that they're focused, and they better make sure that they have direction, and that there is an order to this tribe, and to that tribe, and to this one, and to that one. And the Mishkan, the tabernacle itself, finds itself implanted in the middle of all of the tribes, with the tent of meeting being the ultimate focus, which we are directing our attention to. They say from Rabbi Dovid Miller's Zatzal, they asked him once if he knew that he had 1 more hour to live, what would he do with that last hour of his life? What would he do? Learn? Would he daven? Would he ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to forgive him for all the sins that he might have done in his life? What would he do with the last hour of life? And they're talking about a man who appreciated every single moment. So he answered the following: it would depend what time of the day it was. If it was time to be davening Shacharis, then I would be davening Shacharis. If it was time for me to be learning Gemara, then I would be learning Gemara. If it was lunchtime, then I would be eating lunch. Because his day was so programmed, it was so prepared for him in an orderly fashion, that he felt that all of the moments of his life were accounted for the way that they should be. If he knew that he only had 1 hour left, he wouldn't change a thing, because he was living a life of Seder, a life of order. Now, where do we get the ultimate order in our lives from? So this, Rav Hirsch writes, in these words of the Chumash over here, it says that Bnei Yisrael camped, the Jewish people were encamped, Mineged Saviv La'oyel Moyed Yachanu, they were encamping, surrounding the Oyel Moyed, surrounding the tent of meeting. Now the tent of meeting, as we said, is where Moshe Rabbeinu will be beckoned by the voice of Hashem. Come, Moshe. It's time for me to teach you more Torah. Come, Moshe. I have to give you directions. Come, Moshe. Let me tell you what's going to be with the situation that's at hand over here. Let me tell you what to write down right now for all generations to know the Devar, the word of Hashem. Says Rav Hirsch, you have to think about the scene that's going on over here. You have the prince of every tribe, and they are holding the banner high. The flag of that tribe is being held up very high. And all of the families are gathering around. The men, the women, the infants, the children, everybody's gathering around. And now they're all standing together in their family, in the tribe, exactly where they're supposed to be. And as they all look just to their left, inside the inner circle, they all see the tent of meeting is right there. And they realize at that moment that as all of Klal Yisrael is circling around the tent of meeting, that what is the source of all of the order, of all of the focus, of all of the direction that Klal Yisrael, as individuals, as families, as a nation, are going to get it from? It's from right there, in that Oyel Moed, in that tent of meeting, in the place where you can find the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the holiest of holies, in the place where you're going to find the Shechina HaKadosh, the holy Shechina, the divine presence, which will speak its words to Moshe, and he will impart the message to Klal Yisrael. Our life revolves around the Torah. And the greatest order, the greatest direction, the greatest usage of our abilities and our talents and our time and the energies that we have will be guided and directed if we play it smart. It will be guided over there by the precepts, by the teachings, and by the emes, by the truth that is there inside of that Torah, which is the expression that the Shechina, that the divine presence brings here to this world. And that's how he writes over here, that this tent of meeting that we are calling it, it's near to every single tribe, even though that everybody was in their own place, but we were like equidistant to this holy place. And every single tribe is interconnected with the tent of meeting with the Shechina. And they realize that they're drawing their power, they're drawing their essence from that place itself. And therefore, when a Jew realizes how important Seder order is in their life, and we wonder where are we going to get all of this order from, says the Torah, one place, it will teach it all to you. Torah's Hashem Tinima, the Torah of absolute perfection. You follow the laws, you follow the teachings, you follow the precepts carefully, then you will become Tamima, you will become someone that also is able to reach a level of spiritual perfection here in this world, and certainly will carry you into the world of perfection in the world to come. So we need order, but we also need to know where it is coming from. Look how chaotic the world is right now. We've placed all of our trust, we've placed our future, our present and our future in the hands of people who we're not even sure if they really are making the right decisions for what we should be doing with our lives. Is quarantine the right thing or the wrong thing? We're not going to talk about it. If that was the decree, then that's what was supposed to be the last few months. We agree with it. It saved lives. 250,000 people died in the world in the last 3 months. Yes, it's a serious thing. But does it have to be continued to the extent that it is? We don't know. Is it the real order that the world is supposed to be? We don't know. Does it make sense that a hair salon is going to open up, but 10 Jews cannot get together to daven shachris together? I don't know. Does it make sense that you can go and you can buy yourself apples and bananas, but you can't put stock in the pushka box over here for a poor person? Is that order? I don't know. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows. And Hashem is telling us, if you will make the Torah and the Shechina the central place in your life, and you will look at that, and that's where you will gain your strength from, and your vision from, and your awareness from, then in fact, a person will be able to go in the orderly, focused, straight, dedicated, concerted way that we are supposed to. There's a fascinating story with the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish was one of the greatest giants, Torah giants of his generation. He passed away in 1953. And on the day of his Levi, of his funeral, one of the Rabbanim from a city called Pardes Chana, which was near Haifa, wanted to make arrangements to go to Bnei Brak to be there for that Levi, for that funeral. And the Rav's name was Rabbi Yehoshua Zelig Diskin. He woke up very early. The Levi, the funeral was on a Sunday. He woke up very early on Sunday morning. He davened early, and he was preparing himself to take the journey, maybe an hour or so from Haifa to Bnei Brak. As he is getting himself ready to leave, suddenly there's a knock on his door. He opens the door, and there is a silver-haired, irreligious Israeli man standing there with the daily paper in his hand. And he's pointing at the paper and he says, Ani ra'iti, ani ra'eh, I see, Harav Karelitz niftar. Rabbi Karelitz, the Chazon Ish, died. So, Rabbi Yehoshua Zelig is looking at this man. Okay, I know that. Why are you telling me this right now? So the old man says to Rabbi Diskin, Rabbi Karelitz, who just passed away, owes me 200 rubles. How am I ever going to get the money back? So Rabbi Diskin is a little bit amused over here, and he says, 200 rubles? How could the Chazon Ish owe you 200 rubles? And the man begins to explain. He says that we used to live in Europe, and when the Chazon Ish had a little store that his wife ran, he used to buy a lot of his material, a lot of his merchandise from me. And they owed me an outstanding balance of 200 rubles. This tension in the air with the war and everything that was going on in Europe was getting very tense. And the Chazon Ish and his wife decided to pick up and move to Eretz Yisrael, to the land of Israel. And I guess in their haste of leaving and packing up, they forgot to pay me their last outstanding balance of 200 rubles. And all of these years I was wondering, how am I going to get it? And I moved here to Israel myself, and I lost total touch. I didn't even know where he was. And now it turns out he lives in Israel in Bnei Brak. I can't believe it. I didn't know all these years. I could have gone and knocked on his door and got the 200 rubles. So the man looks at Rav Diskin and he says, can you help me? Can you get me my money? Now, Rav Diskin is a little bit perturbed and agitated at this time. The Chazon Ish just died. He's on his way out the door to take the journey to Bnei Brak to go to the funeral. And this man is worrying over the fact that something maybe like 20, 30 years ago, the Chazon Ish took $200 worth of merchandise and never paid back. That's what he's asking on the day of the funeral. But Rabbi Yehoshua Zelig was very intrigued by this story. And he traveled to Bnei Brak. Before the funeral began, he found his way to Rav Shmuel Greeneman, who was a relative of the Chazon Ish. And he came to him and he said, I feel very silly asking you this question. He says, nevertheless, I have to ask. And he told him the story. I'm leaving my house. The religious man comes. He tells me that the Chazon Ish owes him 200 rubles. How's he going to get the money? No sooner had the words of the story left the lips of Rabbi Diskin, Rabbi Greeneman gets very, very excited. And he reveals to Rabbi Diskin that from the time that the Chazon Ish came to Eretz Yisrael, so many years before, it bothered him to no end that he left Europe without paying the owner of the merchandise the 200 rubles that he owed him. In fact, he said he set aside an envelope of 200 rubles so that if he would ever find this man, the money would always be waiting to be able to give to him. As time passed, the Chazon Ish saw that he can't find him. No one's coming to him. He doesn't know where he is. How's he going to pay him? And he was getting more and more worried that he would not be able to return the money before he was going to leave this world and be buried. Listen to the story. About 1 month ago on Yom Kippur, the Chazon Ish already was not well. He was very weak. He davened with tremendous emotion and special kavanah, special intent on Yom Kippur. And he asked Hashem to please let him repay the loan to this man of 200 rubles before he would be buried. And it weighed on his mind so heavily. And Rav Greineman said to Rabbi Diskin, you see, the prayers of the Chazon Ish were answered. At that moment, Rav Greineman said, come, follow me. And he takes him into another room. And there on the counter is an envelope, 200 ruble waiting for this man. He gives it over to Rabbi Diskin, and in those days you could trust such a thing. He put it in the hands of a taxi driver, and he said, take it immediately to that man. And he received the envelope before the Chazon Ish was buried. When your life is in order, when you are clear of what it is that you're doing, and 200 rubles for 30 years of your life bothers you so much that on Yom Kippur, that with all the energies you have left, you're a weak man whose health is failing. You daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, let the order of my life work out in the right way. Hashem listens to those prayers. And miracles of miracles. Before you are buried, you end up repaying the debt that you had outstanding, hanging over your head for so many years. When a person is misudar, when they are orderly, when they are in touch and in tune, and they are focused on what it is they're supposed to be doing, so then, like the altar of Kelm says, the knot on the necklace is tied in place, and the margolios, the pearls that you have, all the mitzvahs, all the learning, all the davening, all the chesed, all the tzedakah, all of those mitzvahs, they stand by your side and they will adorn you. Just like that pearl necklace adorns the neck and the face of the beautiful kala, of the beautiful bride. As we are getting closer and closer, literally 1 week away from the Yom Tov of Shavuos, next Thursday night we'll be davening. Levi, we hope that we'll be davening at least with 10 people in a front yard or a backyard together as a minyan. But next week is going to be Shavuos. And the halacha, the custom that we have on Shavuos is that we read Megillah Rus, the Megillah of Ruth. And it's a story, a fascinating story of a family who runs away from Eretz Yisrael because they can't take what's going on there anymore, all the famine and the responsibilities and all the poor people that are bothering them. So Elimelech and his wife Naomi and the children, they run off to Moab. And there in Moab, chaos breaks out for them. The husband dies. The sons get married to girls questionable if they really converted at that time. Then the sons die. And it's a sad story of a woman who was once a regal, royal woman, one of the leaders of the Jewish people in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel. She becomes an almana, a widow. She has no children. She has no money. She is poor. She is destitute. Naomi has nothing left anymore in her life. She says, my name is Naomi, which means pleasant. But really, people should call me bitter because that's how bitter my life has become in the last 10 years since we ran out of Eretz Yisrael. There was no order that was in her life anymore. There was only chaos. And chaos breeds difficulty. Chaos breeds things that are going on that are no longer within the realm of what you would even call normal. And when you run away from the order that is supposed to be in your life, so then sky's the limit exactly what is going to happen to the lack of order and the disarray that is there. She has two daughter-in-laws, as we know, Rus and Orpah. They are Moabite princesses. They are very astute and very fine, refined, noble women. And suddenly Naomi comes in contact with a few Jews that are there in Moab on business. She hears them speaking Hebrew. And she learns that Eretz Yisrael, which was in a terrible famine for 10 years, and impoverished and poor, she finds out the famine is over. People are working once again. The economy is booming. The stock market has gone back up. Trump was right. He's going to make this country great once again. We have nothing to worry about. And she says, you know what? I'm going back to Eretz Yisrael. And she kind of sneaks away, but her daughter-in-laws catch her. And they say, Ima, our dear mother-in-law, where are you going? And she tells them, I'm going back to my land. I'm going back to my nation. I'm going back to where I belong, to the holy land of Eretz Yisrael. The famine has ended. People are getting back to life. I don't belong here anymore. And look at how miserable and wretched my life is. Look how all of the order, how everything has fallen apart. And her daughter-in-law say, if you're going, we're going. We love you, Ima. You're the most amazing mother-in-law in the world. You're tzaddikus, you're righteous, what you have endured and what you have been through, and yet your emunah, your faith is intact the way that it is. We're not leaving your side. We want to be part of you. And she tries to push them off, and she says, no, please, don't. It's going to be a hard life. I'm coming back a lonely lady. I have nothing left for myself. I'm poor. Nobody will recognize me. I won't get any of the honor that I used to get. Just stay here. You're a princess over here. Your life's going to be much better. And Orpah and Ruth were pushing, no, please take us. We want to be with you. We love you. We care about you. Wherever you go, we want to be together. And if you know the story of the Megillah, at a certain point, Orpah, who's one of the daughter-in-laws, Orpah at one point, she says, okay, you know what? Fine. I'm not going to go with my mother-in-law. I'll honor her words. Really, the sages tell us that Orpah just didn't really want to go. And she goes back that night to Moab and she does some of the most hideous, insidious sins of illicit relations that a person could possibly imagine. But Ruth tells her mother-in-law, Vatoyme Ruth, al tifka bi, please, don't urge me to leave. Azveich, to leave you, lashu me'acharecha, I'm going to follow you. Ki al asher telchi eleich, wherever you go, I will go. Ubasher talino alin, wherever you will lie down, I will lie down. Amech, Ami, your nation, the Jewish people, will become my nation, because she is the convert. Ve'elokayich Elokai, and your God is my God. Say the Meforshim, the commentators on this verse over here. Ruth was telling her, if you leave me and I no longer have you in my life, I feel like separating from you is like separating from the Torah and like separating from life itself. And therefore, my dear mother, wherever you go, I will go. And the sages teach us that means wherever you are allowed to walk on Shabbos, I will walk on Shabbos. Wherever you will lay down, which means whatever will be the cause of Jewish death based upon the mitzvahs, the averos, and the sins that we do, wherever you are allowed to be buried, I will be buried there as well. Whoever your nation is, I will make myself that nation as well. And whoever your God is, I will make that God my God as well, said Ruth. The order that you are craving, the direction and the focus that you are yearning for and longing for all of these years, being back in the land of Eretz Yisrael that will encompass you, that will envelop you in its kedusha, its holiness, with the Torah, with the mitzvahs, with the service of Hashem. If after these 10 years, my dear mother-in-law, that's still what's on your mind, and it still means so much to you, and you did not abandon HaKadosh Baruch in his ways, then I understand that's the most valuable thing that a person could possibly do. And I will give up the kingdom. I will give up being a princess. I'll give up the riches and the gold and the jewels and the pearls. I'll give up the money. I'll give it all up. Because I want to live a life the way that you are, which is a life that is concerned with making sure that at the center of my universe is the Torah, are the mitzvahs, is the Shekhinah, the divine presence. For without that, said Rus, I understand life is going to be just a two-bit chaotic for me. And I'd like to follow in the pathways, in the direction that you are going in. Rus had to earn her way into Klal Yisrael. She had to prove to Naomi, her mother-in-law, she had to prove to the Besdin, to the high courts, that she is sincere and dedicated and she wants such a life for herself. We, however, are born into this beautiful faith that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us. We're born into the nation of Klal Yisrael that understands that just as we traveled in the Midbar, in the wilderness, with our families, with our wives, with our children, with our tribe, and our travels were always motivated by the word of Hashem. And as we traveled together as a nation, encircling the Mishkan, encircling the tabernacle, in the center of it all was the Oyel Moed, was the tent of meeting. And from that tent of meeting comes the divine word of Hashem himself, where he teaches and he instructs and he shows us and he guides us. So then what a bracha, what a gift and a blessing the Jewish people have, and we're supposed to recognize this on Shavuos as well. And we have to ask ourselves the following question: what is at the center of my universe? What is guiding me to take the steps and do the things that I am doing? Where do I derive my focus and my orderliness from in my life? Is it from the Devar Hashem, from the word of Hashem? Is it from the Torah, which is given to us by HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, creator and master of the world, creator of our neshamas, of our souls? And every single mitzvah is linked in specifically to another part of our neshama and of our bodies to elevate us to the highest level possible. Is that the center? Is that the focus? Is that my aspirations? Are those my goals? Is that my yearning and my longing? Look at Naomi. 10 years of devastation. She never stopped yearning for the moment when she would be able to get back to the order and to the focus and the direction that she knew was the right way to go in life. You think she agreed with her husband Elimelech when they left Eretz Yisrael and ran away from the people that needed them the most? You think she believed that you should go to Moab, a land that it was known to be our enemies for so many hundreds of years already? You think she agreed to the fact that her sons, her beautiful holy children, should marry Moabite princesses? No, because she knew the emes, she knew the truth. But she got stuck in a situation that was hard to get out of. But in her heart of hearts, she was yearning constantly, let me get back to where I want to be. The moment that she realizes the famine is over, she's on the first plane out, heading back to Eretz Yisrael. Rus says to her mother-in-law, if that's what Torah is, that's how powerful and meaningful it is in your life, I want a piece of that as well. I want the order, I want the direction, I want the blessing, I want the success, I want the abundant goodness that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will shower down upon you. I want that for myself as well. And whatever it means to be a Jew, I'm willing to run with open arms and embrace that as the center of my universe. So here we come to Shavuos every single year. Is the cheesecake the center of our Shavuos? Staying up all night, what's going to be this year? Nobody has any idea. Stay up all night all by yourself. How much coffee can one person drink? How much candy can one person eat? We have no idea. Well, most of us will not make it through the night. But one thing that we could affirm on the night of Shavuos and on the 2 days of Yom Tov, and that is we need to ask and we need to think and we need to allow these thoughts to ruminate inside of us. What is guiding us in our lives? Is it Torah or is it other things? Is it God's wisdom or is it somebody else's wisdom? Is it our heritage, our legacy, our yearnings of thousands of years to be someone that is going to find nachas in the eyes of Hashem? Or are we concerned about finding favor in the eyes of the people in this world that are around us? Says the Torah this week, you know what the ikar, you know what the main thing is? Make sure that the knot on that necklace of those expensive and fancy pearls is tied tight. Because if it is, you hold on to all of the glory, all of the mitzvahs, all the chesed, all the reward. It's all yours for the keeping in this world, and you'll carry it with you into the world to come. But if that knot is loose, or that knot is undone, who knows what is going to fall off of our beautiful necklace of Torah and of mitzvahs. So let's tie the knot this Shavuos. Let's make sure that we are steadfast and we are firm in our commitments. That we know that at the center of our universe is really the Ribono Shel Olam, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. And Yisrael, Araisa V'Kudsha Brichu Chan Hu. The Zohar tells us the Jewish people, the Torah, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu were all one. We're all connected with a kesher ometz, with a strong bind, which is a knot that will connect us all together. When we have that, then the life of a person, there's order, there's rhyme, there's reason, there's a rhythm that develops in that person's life, where they're able to get up at the right time, they daven at the right time, they learn at the right time, they treat their spouses properly all of the time. They do chesed at the right time, not at the expense of other people, but they can still do chesed. They get tzedakah at the right time. It's family time at the right time. Everything begins to fall into place. Because when you have Hashem and His Torah guiding you as lights in this dark world that we are a part of, so then you can see the steps that you are taking. And this will be the greatest zechus, the greatest merit that each and every one of us can have this Shavuos. It'll be a Shavuos like we never had before. Even if they allow us to make minyanim in our backyards of 10 people only, they won't be learning like we know. There won't be the minyan at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30 in the morning. Everybody realizes I'm still awake. Let's start dancing. Let's start singing. It's so exciting. And we daven together as one, 40 people, 50 people, whatever it might be. It's not going to be like that this year. It's going to be a lot of loneliness by ourselves, trying to keep our eyes open, get the toothpicks ready just to keep the eyes open. But one thing that we can all do, which will be the pride and the glory of the Ribono Shel Olam, and that is tie the knot. Tie the knot with your orderliness, in which you recognize that your order emanates and it stems from the Torah itself. If we do that, then we will walk away from Shavuos wearing the most beautiful, luxurious, shining, dynamite pearl necklace filled with emunah and with bitachon and with mitzvahs and with Torah in our lives that you ever possibly could have imagined. And that's what it means, as we're saying over here tonight, that's what it means to have your life in order. That's what it means to have direction, to have goals, to have aspirations, to have dreams, to have yearnings that a person wants to accomplish. Just don't forget where the guiding captain of that ship is coming from. That's HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His Torah itself. I want to leave you off with a ma'aseh, with a story. It's not only about the order that one creates in their own life, but it's also recognizing that when you live a life of focus and you recognize that in the center of it all is the source of life, Hashem himself, and his Torah is what is the direction manual giving you the guidance, then everything in your life begins to fall into place in the right way. There's a fellow whose name is Rabbi Yehuda Burns. And Yehuda Burns, he probably doesn't have a job the way that he used to, but he makes copies, he duplicates CDs. Now you have to duplicate USBs, but he used to duplicate CDs. And he would duplicate CDs. People made shiurim, they made classes, and he would distribute them. People wanted drushes from the bar mitzvahs or from the weddings, whatever it was. They wanted it for all posterity's sake. He would record them and he would duplicate them. And one day he gets two orders. One is for 60 orders of CDs of a hesped, of a eulogy which took place. There's a family in New York called the Obermeister family, and the patriarch of that family, Rabbi Obermeister, had passed away. And the hesped that was said for him, and one of the people was so incredibly inspiring. The family was getting together for, I guess, the shloshim, the 30 days after the death, and they wanted to give to all of the members of the family, all 60 of them, a CD of the hespedim of the eulogies that took place by his funeral. The second order was for a local yeshiva. They were sending out copies of some popular shiurim that they had given. It was going to be for a fundraiser that they were making. And they even had like a clever little jingle at the beginning of that CD that would catch the listener's attention and hopefully get them to listen to the shiur that they were sending in that CD as well. And they also ordered for 60 people for this fundraiser. It was, Yehuda made all the CDs, put them in their boxes, and he was preparing the disc to send them with a messenger to the venue of the dinner. Shortly after he sends out the CDs to the messenger, a young man from the Obermeister family comes in, pays for the CDs, and he takes the other box of discs that are there. Yehuda was very happy. He did his job. He passed off the one to the yeshiva, one to the hespedim, to the eulogies, and everything is good. Later that night, the phone rings in Yehuda's house. And it's the executive director of the yeshiva. And he is fuming. And he says, how could you have done this to us? How did you do this to us? He said, what? What did I do? We asked you for a CD of our jingle and our shiur to impress the donors of our yeshiva with all the things that we're doing. And you gave me the CDs of Rabbi Obermeister's Levi of his funeral filled with hespedim, with eulogies? What are you doing? How did you make such a mistake? And Yehuda felt terrible. He never makes these mistakes. He's so meticulous. He's so careful with what he does. He always makes sure that the CDs go to the right person. And he apologized profusely. And the executive says, you're apologizing? It's a little bit too late for that. And we are so disappointed in you that you did this to us. Yehuda feels terrible. However, shortly after that, the phone rings again. And on the other end is the family of the Obermeister family. And they start telling him, what did you do to us? We had a family gathering for our Zayda, for Rabbi Obermeister. And instead we get CDs with a cute jingle that's ringing in our ears and some shiur that has nothing to do with our father. What's going on over here? All of our guests went home empty-handed because nobody wanted it. He said, I'm so sorry. Never make these mistakes. I will make new copies for you of the right CDs free of charge, and I'll pay you back. I'll take the other ones free of charge. Don't worry about it. You're not going to have to pay a penny. And Yehuda felt horrible. And after sitting there, after the two calls, he asked himself, how could I have done such a thing? I don't make those kind of mistakes. In the morning, he gets a phone call, and the phone call is the answer to all of his questions. It is once again the executive director of the yeshiva And he says, Yehuda, I just want you to know, a few moments ago, I got a phone call from one of our biggest donors of the entire yeshiva. He's an observant Jew, but he's not particularly so religious. He doesn't always come to our dinners. He doesn't always come to our events. And he came last night and he showed up just for a little while. And on the way out, he grabbed one of the CDs, assuming that it was the CD that we're supposed to give. And he calls me up this morning and he sounds very, very emotional. And he's actually crying. And he asks me, where did you get the hesped of Rabbi Obermeister, the eulogy of Rabbi Obermeister? And as I began to apologize, I'm so sorry, it was a mistake. He says, no, you don't understand. It wasn't a mistake at all. Rabbi Obermeister was my Rebbe when I was in second grade. Soon after, I lost my father. And he was everything to me. He became a father figure in my life. He took care of me. He made sure that I had everything that I needed. I loved Rabbi Obermeister so much. And the only reason that I'm observant at all today is because of him. And then he said, I want you to know that whenever I would see him over the years, it would bring tears to my eyes when I would be reminded of his kindness and his warmth during the most difficult and trying times in my life. Unfortunately, for a number of years, I haven't been in touch with him. And I didn't even know that he passed away. Last night, I took home that CD and I listened to the hesped, to the eulogy. I couldn't sleep the entire night. I was twisting and turning in my bed as I was reviewing that challenging period in my life. And I kept thinking about Rabbi Obermeister, his purity, his humility, his warmth, his care, the love that he gave to me. And I have to tell you the truth. I don't know if anybody else in the world exists like Rabbi Obermeister. And this conversation went on for an hour. He was reminiscing about his childhood, everything that Rabbi Obermeister did, and then with great emotion, he said to me that he's so inspired by this CD, by the eulogy, for the hesped for Rabbi Obermeister, and he feels so connected to his Rebbe. He's covering the cost for the entire dinner from last night. So Yehuda, don't apologize for the mistake, please. Thank you very much. And when Yehuda hung up the phone, he realized that there are no mistakes. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the center of your universe, when the Torah is the center of your universe, when the knots are tied and your necklace is gleaming with purity and with kedusha, with holiness and sanctity, then everything, all of the order, is going to fall right into place, exactly where it belongs. May we be Zeichen Yirtzeh Hashem with the wonderful, amazing Yom Tiv of Shavuos coming upon us, that we will sit on that night of Shavuos and during the 2 days that we have of Yom Tiv, and we will evaluate our lives. And we will emerge after 2 beautiful days of Yom Tiv with a kesher shel kayemis, an eternal knot that is holding our jewels of Torah and of mitzvahs into place. And that will be the order and the direction that we're moving in life. And Be'ez Hashem, we should all be zeicher to be able to be makabel, to receive the Torah in our lives on this Shavuos like never, ever before. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to stay on.